Okay, I'm gonna put a little disclaimer before this video. I am not a sourdough pro. I have been baking our family's bread for a little over, almost 2 years now, I think. But ventured into sourdough probably about 1.5 years ago. I'm really bad with dates, so that could totally be wrong. But there are a lot of experts out there that know way more about sourdough than I. But I've been asked to show how I do my starter, and so that is what this video is about. Good morning. I have been asked multiple times how I take care of my sourdough starter. So, most of what I have learned has been from Farmhouse on Boone's YouTube channel. She is excellent with sourdough. Amazing, makes it way more relaxed and stress-free. She has 7 kids, I believe, pregnant with her 8th. So it's like sourdough can be very time consuming, but she makes it seem really, really easy. The Q&A is the one that I recommend listening to a lot, and her recipes are fantastic. I have also learned from Ballerina Farms. Now that is actually where I got my starter. So I had someone give me a starter that was actually great, worked great. They gave it to me locally, but when my mom, after she passed, I just didn't make sourdough for a couple months. And it was in the back of the fridge, which you can fully revive a sourdough starter that has been in the back of the fridge. But I didn't want to, and I honestly just wanted a fresh start, you know? So I ordered Ballerina Farms starter Willa. Willa, right? It's fantastic, incredible. So that is the starter that I have now. Now, I used to keep a very big glass jar of starter. I kept a lot of it. I was using discard all the time for either pancakes or sourdough tortillas or whatever. But now I still make a lot of sourdough, but I also make normal like yeast breads. So I don't make as much sourdough as I used to. So now what I do is I measure out my sourdough starter and how much flour and water I use according to Ballerina Farms. So hers, it's pretty much like the measurements she does when she sends you the starter. It's pretty much perfect for a recipe for sourdough bread for like 2 loaves. And then the amount you have left over is basically what you're going to feed to make a new starter the next day. So all that to say, not to get too confusing, hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I used to not measure. I used to have, say like in the bottom of my big glass thing, I had this much sourdough starter, and I would add that much flour and then a little bit of water, mix it all up, and it was happy as could be. But because I don't keep that much anymore, I actually measure because I don't have a ton of discard that I'm needing to find a recipe to use it for. So here we go. I have a scale. Okay, don't get a scale with nutritional facts. This is just back from my extreme obsessive dieting days where I kept my macros for 3 years and measured things at restaurants. So don't get this one, just get a normal scale, but I'm not gonna buy a new one because I already have one that works. So this, I measure in grams. And so what I'm gonna do, here is the starter that just came out of the fridge. So that is another thing. Hold on real quick. So when I use this about 1 to 2 times a week. In between those times, I usually put it in the fridge. Occasionally, I will actually leave my starter on the counter for a couple days without being fed. That's controversial. You can watch people that are like, don't leave it out for longer than 6 hours after it's been fed or whatever. I'm not saying that's the exact amount, but some people get very, very, very strict on how long you keep it out and whatnot. I have kept it out for a couple days before and it seems totally fine without feeding it. So, but what I typically do right now is I make, because we've been really busy and gone a bunch, is I've been making it once a week. So it stays in the fridge. Before that, I feed it. Right now it's cold, so when I feed it, it is gonna take a tiny bit of time, a little bit longer time to rise than it normally would because it's kind of cold. But what I will do, although it is getting warm now outside, so our house is getting warmer, we have a toaster oven. We don't use a microwave, so we just have a toaster oven in this corner, and I actually will turn that on to get that little corner warm. That's how we get it, you know, kind of warm. But anyways, this is what I have left from the starter when I fed it. So here we go. I am going to zero out the scale. I am going to measure 30 grams of starter, 30-ish. Sometimes I do 40-ish, but yeah, just I'm really not super accurate with it. Okay, so that's like 31. Sometimes just because I don't want to waste this, I actually will put a little bit more and then just make a little bit more starter. But in my bread recipes, so it calls for 200 grams of starter. I will sometimes just pour the little bit extra in there. And I haven't noticed any difference in my sourdough. But right now, that's 30 grams. You do not have to get one of these, but it does make it a little bit less messy. Zero out your scale. And I do 140 grams of all-purpose flour, or this is actually bread flour. Works fine. It's actually what I can use as all-purpose flour. Okay, that's 71. I need to get some more flour. Like I said, 140 grams. And zero out. Now, you need to use filtered water. You don't want water with chlorine in it. You can set water out on the counter overnight so the chlorine evaporates, but I just use water from our Berkey. Now, I was actually looking back at the recipe to make sure I'm actually doing exactly what she suggests, but I'm just gonna show you what I do. So since this is my thing, what I do for water is, okay, zero it out. And so it's 30 grams starter, 140 grams flour, and about 120 grams of water. Now, I'm gonna see how it feels when I stir it, if I wanna add a little bit more. I suggest not using metal to stir this. Some people say it's fine, some people, whatever. I just always use wood, and I just use the bottom of a spoon. They have like fancy ones you can buy. This is just what I do. And I stir it all up. You want to incorporate it really well. Yep, I'm going to put a little bit more water. Now see, this is where I don't measure sometimes. So I do it more by consistency. I think it might have been 130 grams, like I said. I think I needed to find the recipe, but I didn't. Okay. Now I'm going to show you this. Okay, now it could honestly even be a little bit more water in there, but I'm just going to keep it like this. And I just kind of scrape the sides, make sure it's all incorporated. Okay. You know what's a pain though, is to clean these spoons, the wood stick. So you really could put a tiny bit more water in if you wanted, but I'm just gonna keep it just like that. Okay, so actually, you know what I'm gonna do is, I think I know why it's a little bit thicker. I think I actually put about 40 grams of starter because I don't wanna waste it usually. So I'm gonna pour a little bit more in there, just a little bit. And then I'll mix that up. Like I said, I don't like to fuss and make it so exact that it's just stressful. Now for the recipes, I suggest doing it exact, but as far as the starter, as long as there is enough flour in there for it to feed on, you do not want like so much starter and then barely any flour in there. You need a good amount of flour for it to be able to feed on all of that gluten in there. So now I just lightly cover it and sit it to the side and let it rise. Now I have a tiny bit of starter left. I will probably just toss this. I hate tossing stuff, but it's barely any. If I had more, I would definitely cook with it. Some people actually, they'll just keep this in their fridge and they keep adding discard to it. So I might do that, but I usually don't have any discard left. I must have fed it a little bit more last time, and so there was a little bit extra. But usually I don't have anything extra. That's why I like to measure it when I'm feeding it so that I have just enough for the bread, and then I can put the rest of the starter back in the fridge for when I'm gonna feed it the next time. Okay, so it is 10:30 and it's getting nice and bubbly, and it will be perfect in the morning. Like I said, when it's cold and I feed it, it takes a little bit longer. The way I like to do it is when it rises all the way up and then it starts to fall, that's when I like to use it. Okay, it is 11 something. It may be a little bit past ready in the morning, but it'll still completely work and make sourdough good. But there it is, it's rising well. It is the next morning. Look what shirt I have. Look whose shirt. Real food comes dirty. I love this shirt so much. Roots and Refuge. But I am going to show you what my starter looks like this morning. Okay, it is perfectly ready. Now some people do a test where they drop this in water, and if it floats, then it's ready. But see how it, like, you can see how on this, how you can, it rose a little, but more than that, and then it fell. So that is when I like to use it perfectly. Now, to be real, I will not be making that starter or using that starter until later today, because we have a field trip this morning with our charter school, and it'll still be fine. I've had to wait before and it still worked. So I hope you enjoyed this little bit of how I feed my starter, how I use my starter. Have a great day. God bless. Come back. Okay, ignore the egg cooking, but I just wanted to show that even though it's sat for a little bit, it is still floating and nice and happy. And there you go. I did want to show one more thing. There's actually a little bit left in this one, so I will probably use that for something else as well. But just wanted to show you how nice and happy the starter is.